In this week's astrology, we start the week with a beautiful full moon in Aries. That Aries house is being worked on where we're releasing, we're showing gratitude, and we're embracing the fruits of our labor. It's a very exciting time. There's a lot of healing properties around that full moon in Aries. Even though Aries doesn't necessarily focus on healing, it's not an archetype that's for that, but because the wounded healer Chiron is in conjunction with the lunation, the healing is incorporated within the archetype itself. And Aries likes to do things quick, does not like to take too much time to take initiative or action. So this healing will be something that's fast, like ripping off a band-aid. And it will be a little bit of pain at first, but after you rip off that band-aid, you'll see that the healing process will be quite quick and also liberating. And this is going to fuel you with passion and desire to do new things, to change new ways of doing things, and embrace new horizons. So strap on those boots and get to healing. Well, that was just a short little recap about the full moon in Aries. I did speak about the full moon last week on last weekend's podcast. So if you want more information about that, you can check that out. Now, after this full moon, we do start the week on Monday a little bit more feeling like we're in a time warp. There's a few things that are happening Monday that is causing this. First, we get into orb with Mars making a square to Neptune. And then Mercury also ingresses to the sign of Libra, which then he starts creating that applying opposition to Jupiter, expanding that applying square to Neptune. So it does kind of feel like the energy is just like at a standstill in a way, or it's too much that you kind of have to just settle yourself and refocus on what it is that you need to do, or how to handle certain situations. Because I love myself some Jupiter, but sometimes I really do feel that I can expand things and over exaggerate. And the combination of Mercury and Jupiter together in any aspect usually tends to stretch the truth a little. So we might not be able to hear or even see something that's not truthful or hidden. We might not see everything all the way. We may not catch it. So it does throw our sensory perception off. Now, Mars and Neptune aspect, whether it's a square opposition or a good aspect like a sextile or a trine, it doesn't matter. The intuition is there, but sometimes our intuition is off, right? Our gut feeling is off, but we still got an intuitive hit. And that's when we have to kind of sit with that energy and see, was it that I was getting this message for this reason, or did it mean something more symbolic and I misinterpreted that? So it does lend itself to a little bit of confusion, but it tends to be more intuitive. That's one of the more intuitive aspects, I mean. So another thing that I would like you to watch for, especially starting Monday, is headaches, because there's just going to be a lot of nervous tension with Mercury being expanded with Jupiter, and Mercury rules the nerves along with Uranus. So make sure that you're taking plenty of rest and you're drinking plenty of water, and you're also doing some type of breathing or intentional breathing. Like maybe you can look for a YouTube video where you do a breathing meditation of some sort, just so you can kind of fuel your body, fuel the blood, right? Jupiter is in Aries, and Mercury is in a Libra sign, which is an air sign. So you want to harmonize and equalize the system so everything kind of flows correctly, and also for your mind so you can think clearly. So that's how Monday starts off. And on that same day, we have Venus in Libra making an exact opposition to Chiron in Aries. So this was a signature aspect that was for the full moon in Aries as well, and it perfects the day after. So this healing is continuing during Monday, and this is another reason why the energy is more expanded. And Mercury goes in the sign of Libra around 4:50 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time. So please adjust for your time zone. And then on Tuesday, the 11th, we have Venus forming a square to Pallas Athena in the sign of Cancer. Now, Pallas Athena rules are executive functioning, that it's more like our craftiness, our way to execute and process things and delegate them. So she is the ruler of making the most ideal executed plan so you can win. That's really what it is, and that's why she's so crafty. But in the sign of Cancer, this is now something that is focusing on the mother archetype, the nurturing side of things. And when it's in square to Venus, which is another female sign, another sensual sign of women and femininity and love and sexuality, we see now that there's some type of conflict in regard to nurturing and self-care. So that's something that we might see. It's still kind of playing off with that Venus and Chiron opposition. Now, Venus and Pallas Athena square continue that conversation. But Pallas Athena doesn't necessarily like to wallow in its sorrow like Chiron does. Chiron is amazing energy and has a very high vibration and consciousness as a energy. However, it did sit with a lot of pain. His mythology sat with a lot of pain of being rejected by his parents and growing up not being loved the way that he deserved, and always overgiving and guiding others and just being there for everyone else, but then at the end forgetting to really heal himself from the inner child wound, the pain, and this shaped him. And Pallas Athena has a different story. Her mythology, she was actually in her mother's womb when Jupiter swallowed her mother, and her mother was the goddess of cunning. She was Meta, and she was very wise and cunning and smart, and this was one of Zeus's wives, and she would counsel Zeus and advise him, and he felt threatened by her, and he decided to swallow her when he found out that she was bearing a child. And because the oracle had prophesied that a child would overthrow him, he decided to swallow his wife while she was pregnant with Pallas Athena. Now, her mythology is a little different, in which she still has a wound, as she is being portrayed as having a missing mother. But I really feel like that interpretation is incorrect. And this is my point of view, and you can agree or disagree. So Zeus swallowed his wife while she was pregnant, and he had a very big bad headache, and when his head was cut open, out jumped a full grown woman, which was Pallas Athena. But Zeus still had her mother within him because he had swallowed her. Now, he didn't swallow her as a human form. See, Pallas Athena's mother was the goddess of cunning and cleverness. So they were playing a game to see who was the most clever. And she was shape-shifting and turning herself into different objects. And finally, the final challenge was, can you turn yourself into a teardrop? And she did. And when she morphed herself into a teardrop, Jupiter swallowed her. So she was still within Jupiter, became part of Jupiter, and mythology says that as he embodied his partners, because he's done this several times, he would gain the wisdom or the talents that that partner had. So that would make Jupiter more wiser, and he would now be the god of cunningness. So I really do feel that Pallas Athena does have a mother, but it's within Jupiter. The mother resides within Jupiter, and Pallas Athena continued to grow within him. And then she was born, and she was born fully armored. So she was ready to battle, ready to conquer, and ready to fight for what she believed was true and correct. And she has a lot of those qualities of her mother, as she is amazingly cunning. So wherever you have Pallas Athena, that is your gift to the world, where you speak up and advocate for yourself. This is where you stand up for what you believe in. This is how your mind works in this area of the chart, where you're really interested in crafting and solving a problem in that area. So an example, like just say if you have Pallas Athena in the 7th house, you might be a great negotiator. So you craft and resolve and balance and harmonize and fight for justice within either the justice system, because that also rules the 7th house, or within marriages or partnerships of some sort. So you usually tend to be a good negotiator. If you have Pallas Athena in the 2nd house, this is a woman that's very confident in her self-worth and self-esteem, and usually acquires a lot of resources, because the craftiness is in how to attain resources. So you might want to apply that within your chart. And eventually I'll do a series of Pallas Athena so you can see her expression. But when I see Venus in Libra squaring Pallas Athena, and she's in Cancer, we're talking about something that needs to be resolved. Pallas Athena's energy in the sign of Cancer is asking us to no longer wallow in these things that are hurting us, or in same patterns that we've held for a while, which might not have been an issue before this, but are now coming up, and you're like, whoa, why is this coming up now? It's also great, not just for healing, but for taking action, because the square pushes you. It's energy of Mars, and it pushes you. It's friction. It wants you to do whatever you need to do. So you might be kind of itching to take that action now, or take that step. And Venus and Pallas Athena square is going to push you. It's going to be much more gentler, because Venus is in Libra. So it's going to be very pushy with words and persuasive with words. And with the square of Pallas Athena from Cancer, it's also going to be looking out on a more deeper and emotional level on how it is that we're gaining this, or gaining the upper hand in a way. So just wanted to mention that. I really don't include a lot of the asteroids often, but I thought that that was worth sharing. Now, that same day on the 11th, we have Mars making a square to Neptune. So that's another personal planet squaring an outer planet. And that happens at 10:46 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You want to be extra careful. This is an accident aspect. I notice this often because Mars is quick, and in Gemini likes to multitask, and the sign of Neptune in Pisces is like daydreaming. So there could be some accidents when, especially anything using like weapons and knives, like just say, cooking. You don't think of cooking as weapons. You don't think as a kitchen knives as a weapon, but it actually is. We, chop vegetables with it, but we're still chopping. So you want to make sure you don't chop a nail off, or, whatever. Like, be very careful. Like, make sure you're not multitasking and with dangerous objects. I mean, if you're multitasking while you're, like, I don't know, erasing a drawing and then drinking coffee, whatever, that's different, right? What's the harm in that? But I mean, if it's anything dangerous or there's movement involved, like walking, because Gemini rules walking. So you want to make sure you're watching your step, you're watching your environment, you're not going to cause like an accident, like trip on something, and then it turns into like, oh, you try to catch your fall and you break a finger. I've seen this like stuff over and over again with these two planets involved in the mutable signs, and now they happen to be in Gemini and Pisces. So if you have any mutable placements, or you have a mutable sun, that's going to be Gemini, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Virgo. You want to be extra careful between the 11th all the way to the 15th in regard to multitasking. So try to be as, even though it's going to be hard, try to be as focused as possible and avoid multitasking and things that can result in an accident. Now, that same day, we do have a sun trining Saturn. So Libra sun trining Saturn in Aquarius, which I think it's quite beautiful because that actually assists in grounding some of the energy. So there's going to be some type of assistance during this day, but it's just going to feel a little off. So make sure that you are paying attention to your environment. And then Wednesday the 12th, we have the perfection of Mercury making that opposition to Jupiter. So again, this is actually quite nice. I actually think it's energy of expansion. Like I said, it's energy of overdoing things. And the day that they perfect, this is the third time they do it. There's not a lot of harsh aspects other than a square of the moon to Saturn. But everything else, there's a trine to Pluto from the moon on that day. There's a let me see, what else is there? There's a sextile to Neptune from the moon on that day. So there's a lot of just moon aspects on that day. So you just want to make sure that you are having a good time. And also, this is the third and last time that Jupiter and Mercury will make this opposition, since Mercury was retro. The first time that there was the opposition of Jupiter Mercury was September 2nd of 22, and then we have September 18th of 22, which was while Mercury was retro, and now it's going forward again. This is October the 12th of 22. So you might want to, especially if you journal, you want to go back to those dates and see what was happening during that time, so you can see like what can happen or what the theme would be for you individually, since you kind of already experienced some of that energy. In looking back on my journal, I just noticed that I had a lot of feelings of happiness and euphoria and wanting to watch funny movies and just talking a lot and also reading a lot. It was like a time that I started reading a new book, and it was very mind-blowing. So it was a philosophical book. So yeah. Okay. And for Thursday the 13th, we have the waning gibbous moon that happens on 8:18 in the morning Pacific Standard Time at 5 degrees in Gemini. So that is we already see that the full moon starts slowly dissipating at this point, and it goes into that waning phase. And we also have Venus in Libra forming a trine to Saturn in Aquarius. So as you can see, you're seeing a theme of Saturn in communication. First, it was with the sun, and now Saturn is making a trine to Venus. It also made a square to the moon. And then it's going to finish off communication with a trine to the Gemini moon. And Saturn, because it's making a lot of aspects this week, is really grounding the energy. So if you feel that there's something off balance this week for you, you want to tap into where Saturn in Aquarius is located in your chart via transit. So an example for me, I am a Leo rising, and my 7th house is Aquarius. So I would look at my 7th house. For someone with a Libra rising, then you would look at your 5th house, because that is the house that has Aquarius for you, and Saturn is transiting Aquarius. So you want to look at that house, and that is where you're going to receive much more structure and direction, so you can resolve things, or you can follow through. It's really good for working. Actually, it's good for communicating your thoughts, and also expressing your desires, because the aspect of Venus and Saturn is really nice, I believe. In synastry, we always want to see Saturn playing well with the personal planets, because that means there's longevity. That doesn't mean that the partnership will not suffer or have problems, but it does show that they're able to pull through, they're able to resolve things, they're able to really stand the test of time, because they can go for the long haul, right? Saturn rules things that take long journeys, that take a long time, like climbing a mountain, and that takes a long time. It takes conditioning, and through the climb, you're also conditioning yourself and learning while you condition yourself, learning through the journey that you're taking. So this aspect of Venus to Saturn is really good in regard to love matters, communicating what you want to achieve within relationships. It's great for negotiations, because Venus is just very clever, and then you bring Saturn in, and it's just going to be very wise, and also in the sign of Aquarius, thinking very outside of the box, very inventive and creative. So then that can actually solidify some contracts for you if that's something that you are interested in doing. And then for Friday the 14th, we have that final conversation with Saturn when the moon in Gemini makes a trine, and this is at 10:32 a.m. And this is actually a very heavy day on a lot of lunar aspects. We have the moon also making a sextile to Chiron, and the moon making a trine to Venus, and the moon making a trine to the sun that day, the moon squaring Neptune, and then the moon conjuncting Mars. So the moon is actually in conversation with a lot of planets. So Friday might be a little bit more jam-packed with things, activities, or more demanding things going on that need your attention, need you to tend to. So especially the sign of Gemini, it's multitasking. So it looks like it's just going to be a lot of little things that kind of pop out of nowhere, redirecting, things like that. And then for Saturday, the 15th, we only have one aspect, which is the moon enters the sign of Cancer, and it's squaring Jupiter at 11:43, and there's actually no more aspects that day. So this means that we're processing internally the emotional energy that we experienced the day before, because we had a lot of communication with the moon and the other planets. So now it's a day that we're processing everything and kind of slowing down. So Saturday seems to be a little bit more laid back and fun. And then we end the week with a moon in Cancer still. And the moon makes a square to Mercury that day. It also sextiles the North Node in Taurus. makes a square to Chiron, and makes a sextile to Uranus. So overall, we start the week with a full moon with heightened emotions in the archetype of Aries, and then we end the week with a cardinal moon in Cancer. And hopefully the journey this week helped us heal and take action, as we do have a asteroid in the sign of Cancer, Pallas Athena, helping us craft a new way of doing things, and also giving us a more methodical perspective, and hoping for resolution in these areas that have been highlighted through Chiron aspects, and also the moon that was very highlighted in healing and letting things go, but in a quick way. So it looks like it resolves by the end of the week. The crystal that I recommend using this week is green aventurine, and the reason I recommend this crystal is because it has very abundant lucky aspect to it. It works with our self-worth. It's connected to the energy of Venus in a more grounded fashion, and abundance. It also helps us and guides us to the road of least resistance. So again, thank you so much for being here. If you liked this podcast or this forecast, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment below. Let me know how you are feeling with this week's energy. I absolutely love to read your comments. It brings me so much pleasure. I also reply to all my comments. So thank you so much. And remember, always stay curious and ask what's in your stars. Bye. Love and light.